to disperse them outside a government building in Cairo. Police in New Zealand say the death toll in Tuesday's earthquake has gone up to 145. With more than 200 people still missing, that number may rise further. Search teams from 6 countries have flown in to help local rescuers, but no survivors have been found since Wednesday. Violent aftershocks continue to hit the shattered city of Christchurch. That's Inside Story next. Stay with us.
After more than a week of unrest, thousands of Libyans are still calling for the end of Muammar Gaddafi's rule. But the man who's led Libya for more than 41 years is clinging to power. What does the current political structure in Libya look like, and what kind of Libya would emerge if Gaddafi falls? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Hazem Seeker. For the past 41 years, the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi has created his own style of rule, the so-called state of the masses, or Jamahiriya. It's a political system that was supposed to create a popular government with power directly vested in the hands of the people. In 1990, Gaddafi was appointed supreme leader by the General People's Congress that he created in 1977. In 1992, Gaddafi fragmented the political structure by dividing Libya into 1,500 mahallat, or communes, each with its own budget and powers. In 2000, he abolished most central government executive functions, devolving responsibility to 26 councils that make up the General People's Congress, maintaining control over all facets of the regime. But the reality is that unlike in Tunisia or Egypt, Libya lacks the strong institutions that could help smooth a transition process. With Gaddafi's regime seemingly on its last legs in Libya, some form of leadership is taking place in the eastern part of the country. Well, joining us now to talk more about this are our 3 guests in London. Jeremy Keenan, North Africa security analyst and author of books on the Maghreb region, including The Dark Sahara, America's War on Terror in Africa. In Amman, Ahmed Atiga, a Libyan analyst. In Washington, D.C., Ibrahim Sahad, Secretary General for the National Front for the Salvation of Libya. Jeremy Keenan, if I could start with you. The Libyan state has essentially been built around one man, and there's no unifying force or figure to replace him. So is there a risk of a major power vacuum here should Gaddafi eventually fall?
I think there will obviously be a power vacuum. That goes without saying, because in a sense, Gaddafi and his family and his thugs and the institutions immediately close to him, his own Praetorian Guard, were in a sense the power. However, in answer to that question, I have huge faith in the Libyan people. I think if we look at Benghazi and what is happening there, and has happened in a very short period of time, street committees developing and giving all the appearances of the ability to run the situation in an extremely difficult situation, I have confidence, quite frankly, in the Libyan people themselves. One reason for that is that Libya, perhaps more than any other country in the region, has an extraordinary high level of education in a formal sense. There may not be jobs, there may not be positions there for them, but the Libyan people themselves have an extraordinary high level of knowledge, understanding, and skills and abilities. And I think we're seeing all of that coming to the fore very rapidly at the moment. And in spite of that vacuum, I think I have confidence that in the Libyan people themselves to manage that and hopefully fill it in.
But there is also there could also
way.
be a scenario, couldn't there, that if Gaddafi himself is toppled, there could be remnants of his regime that will continue to resist because they have a vested interest in that, and there is a fear of the alternative here. It's basically a fight to the death for many of them.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the big question at the moment. How long will it take to clear those remnants of the Gaddafi's regime? And what I'm hearing, certainly last night and this morning, is a little bit disturbing on that, because the 3 questions are: how long will his own units remain loyal to him? To what extent are these mercenaries coming into the country still, in what sort of force? And thirdly, and the really disturbing question for me, is what sort of support is he getting from his neighbors? And by that I'm referring particularly to Algeria. That is a bit of an unknown question. We could talk about it perhaps in a moment. But those are unknowns. And until, in a sense, we have a handle on that and we know how strong his resistance is and how quickly it might be cleared, that is very much the unknown question, literally today.
Unknown questions indeed. Ahmed Ataga in Amman, what do you believe is the most likely scenario here going forward?
I think the Libyan people will, as they have shown in the last week or so, will put the interest of the country at the foremost, and will start creating the political structure that will fill the vacuum that you have alluded to. I think one of the worst sins of the Gaddafi regime was the complete absence of any political structure or system that could have been utilized in a transitional phase going forward. And for example, in Tunisia and in Egypt, when they solved their problems, they had a constitution that they immediately resorted to and changed some articles and managed to put a transitional structure. Libya did not have anything of that sort. So I think the challenge is to have a structure that could be emerging very quickly and putting the elements of a regime or a system that will have democratic, of course, starting with a constitution, leading to association, freedom of association, freedom of creating parties, and ultimately an election that the people will choose those who will lead them.
Ibrahim Sahad, how do you see a post-Gaddafi regime in Libya unfolding? There are fears of a lack of unity in terms of what could follow.
No, there is no lack of unity within the Libyan people. On the contrary, the atmosphere in those cities who fell under the demonstrators became a very, very encouraging atmosphere. Solidarity, brotherhood feeling start to emerge there. I got the information that the cities are forming committees to run business, 2 committees for each city, one for the security and the other one for the administrative purposes. I understood that from my contacts that those committees are communicating now with each other to start the process of forming a provisional government. That provisional government will lead the country toward the next step, which is forming a transitional government which take care of the transitional period. In that period, there will be election for the a conference to draft a constitution, and then a referendum on that constitution done by the Libyan people. The constitution will then govern the political life of Libya. We are looking forward to see that constitution.
One of the things. Sorry to interrupt, Ibrahim Sahad, but one of the things that we mentioned at the top with Libya is the lack of strong institutions that would help to transition all of these things that you're talking about: elections, a constitution, and so on. So isn't there a kind of a vacuum there in that there aren't these strong elements that would help that?
Well, the vacuum will be filled very, very quickly. We saw that yesterday in Al-Bayda when they have a meeting and they rally around the Minister of Justice, Judge Mustafa Abdul Jalil, and there are many figures in Libya who can lead this stage. I mean, the way I hear it, that the provisional government is in process now to be formulated, and when that happens, that will take care of the daily life of the country and will move forward for the next step. Everybody now talking about a constitutional government, a democratic government. We're looking forward to see the constitution govern the life of the Libyan people. That's why we all want to get rid of Gaddafi, because he did not allow the country to have a constitution for 41 years, and he make an anarchy, so nobody else can run business but himself, and nobody can succeed him easily. The way I see it is moving forward.
Jeremy Keenan, we've seen several defections by senior government figures and diplomats abroad. Does Libya's best hope of forming a workable government lie with these people, perhaps?
Well, certainly there are a lot of very able people, as the previous speaker said. They are available and huge experience and a lot of skills. I have no doubt on that front at all. In fact, you know, not having institutions in place may even be an advantage, because in a lot of these countries, the institutions that are there are corrupt and inefficient. So actually not having them, i.e. starting with a vacuum, may in fact lead to far more positive results and much quicker outcomes than actually having some vestigial institutions left in place. So, I mean, the other question is how many of these key people are still around Gaddafi? I mean, the strength, the key question to me is, what is the strength of the support that is still around him? This is the unknown factor, and is it being reinforced by external forces, either in the region or from further afield? Until we have better knowledge of that, I think, you know, it's going to be difficult to see how quickly one can progress through the next stage, and that is the stage of getting rid of him altogether.
Ahmed Attega, do you think the international community should do more to step up here?
I think the international community should step up its efforts to first and foremost stop the bloodshed that's happening in Libya on the hands of this regime. I think the reaction of the international community so far has not been up to that task, and I hope that they will take much more decisive measures, including in the Security Council and other forums, to put an end to the bloodshed and to the massacre that the Libyan people have been going through. After that, I think the Libyan people, from all their facets and inside and outside Libya, will rise up to the challenge of leading their country to a much better future. And as I mentioned, and the other colleagues have mentioned, the elements of putting a political structure together